Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Collegiate Esports Now. I'm your co-host, Paulie Hype, and we'll be joined by Katie Scott later as we're so excited to bring to you all of the latest and greatest highlight stories and matchups from our partner conferences in week number 6 of college esports. The most dominant matchups that'll make you all stay saying, now that's hype. The CECC East Regional, hosted by Rutgers University New Brunswick and presented by U.S. Army and Army ROTC, took place on the weekend of November 5th and 6th. Teams from the East region compete in the 4 titles of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, Rocket League, Overwatch, and Valorant. For this event, the top 8 teams that won entry from the Open Qualifier look to take the championship and secure a spot in the Collegiate Esports Commissioner's Cup that will be held and take place in May 2023. First up is Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. The same question remained from the Open Qualifier. Would any team be able to take a stock off of Fisher College and give them a run for their spot to the CECC Finals? Fisher led their group convincingly, leaving Quinnipiac and St. Thomas Aquinas to battle for 2nd seed in the group. Meanwhile, New Jersey City University, who entered the tournament as the 2nd seed overall, couldn't find their bearings against Rutgers and St. John's, which left them in a surprising 3rd seed in their group. Moving into the bracket stages, only one upset to come out of the quarterfinals, with NJCU taking down Quinnipiac in sweeping fashion. Fisher had a bump in the road, losing a series point to St. John's, but able to close out the series 2-1 and move on to the finals to face the home team, Rutgers University. The first series of finals proved to be one of the toughest, but Fisher star player Tony Pajamas took an astounding 11 out of 12 stocks in the 2nd round and secured the win and the spot to the CECC Finals. Next up is Overwatch 2. With the time to understand and study the meta of Overwatch 2, the true test came down to this tournament for many of the teams to see if they had what it takes to secure their spot in the CECC Finals. Fisher and Harrisburg led the charge coming into this tournament, but a new addition of the Hode team Rutgers would stir the pot with some of the top teams in collegiate battling it out to the end. New hero additions like Kiriko allowed for the strategies to come into play, but before we could blink, we were running it back from the Open Qualifiers. Rutgers got taken out in the semifinals against Fisher, and the repeat finals of Fisher vs. Harrisburg proved to be even more intense than the first time. But in the end, it was the same story, same outcome, as Fisher College was on top. Coming up next is Rocket League. Stockton, the team we didn't get to see compete for the top seed coming into the regional qualifiers, looked to take it all at the LAN. Alvernia, on the other hand, didn't have the same experience as they had it in the Open Qualifiers. We got to see the finals matchup after all, as Alvernia went up against Stockton in the semifinals, but they would lose 3-0. On the other side of the bracket, however, Delaware went through a long series against the College of Staten Island, CSI, and moved on to face Rutgers in the semifinals. However, this is where things came to an end as they got reverse swept by Rutgers. Stockton, however, the clear top team in the tournament, were left to face off against the home team of Rutgers and had a few close games as we watched the series score go 2-2. However, Stockton had it in them and used their experience to close out the match against Rutgers 4-2, naming them the CECC East champions and sending them to the CECC Finals. Next up is the ECAC Week 6 highlights, starting with Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, New York Institute of Technology versus Penn State Behrend. Not every day do you get to witness such perfection by a singular player of a team, but today was that day. Percival from NYIT absolutely dominated the entirety of Penn State this week, taking out 17 of their total 18 stocks that they had available to them through the best-of-3 series. Now, some players are that strong on their main character, but Percival isn't like those players. He showed us 2 separate characters, Snake and Kazuya, both with very different movesets, but still showed his pure dominance, only allowing Penn State Behrend to take a total of 5 stocks throughout the entirety of the series. Next up for SSBU is Roger Williams University versus the Catholic University of America. Despite the scorelines for both teams, this series was a war between the two that came down to the very last players. Catholic University came out with an early lead with Kralo's Pac-Man, but Yuki on Zelda proved to be a problem, taking down 2 stocks from 2 separate players. After the Min mirror match, Toti's Captain Falcon secured the win for CU. Game 2 was a similar start with Krolo taking down RWU's starter, but quickly falling to Yuki, who also took out Habibi's Min as well. In the end though, Toti's Captain Falcon managed to survive with his very last stock to secure the 2-0 victory for his school. Catholic University moves up to 5-1, but this match showed there is still room for improvement. Time for some Valorant. Muskingum University versus University at Albany A. This series opened up in the best way possible, with UAlbany's Shadow securing a pistol round ace in the opening round on Icebox. UA was able to take Icebox 13-4 in convincing fashion, with Shadow showing off his 18-11-11 score on stage. Map 2 though, Haven, saw our very first instance of Harbor being played, and what a showing it was. It was a great start from Muskingum, securing 2 fast rounds, but UA quickly turned it around. Yet again, the man of the match was Shadow, but he busted out the Phoenix to get an astounding 20, 14, and 5 finishing stat line. Coming up next is Rainbow Six Siege, James Madison University versus Trine University. In what felt like an even match, James Madison University was able to show us that they have worked over the past couple weeks to get better at closing out maps, and also through the unorthodox gameplay from their player Shadows, they were able to take match number 1 in this series, 7-4. Going into map number 2, they also showed dominance and consistency, but this time it would be player PK to show up and take the entire lobby by storm, going 16-4-1 for map number 2, and enabling their team to take the rounds and close out the match 7-3. James Madison University wins the series, sweeping Trine 2-0. Time for some Valorant. Muskingum University versus University at Albany A. This series opened up in the best way possible, with UAlbany's Shadow securing a pistol round ace in the opening round on Icebox. UA was able to take Icebox 13-4 in convincing fashion, with Shadow showing off his 18-11-11 score on stage. Map 2 though, Haven, saw our very first instance of Harbor being played, and what a showing it was. It was a great start from Muskingum, securing 2 fast rounds, but UA quickly turned it around. Yet again, the man of the match was Shadow, but he busted out the Phoenix to get an astounding 20, 14, and 5 finishing stat line. Next up for Valorant is the University of North Carolina at Greensboro versus Stonehill College. If you want to look at one of the most dominant teams for the ECAC this fall, then look no further than UNC Greensboro. From the first couple of rounds, we already saw UNCG's Dean get several 4Ks on his Rays, and the momentum snowballed to a 13-2 win on Fracture for the team. Ascent started off a little slower, with Stonehill winning the first 2 rounds of the map, but UNCG made sure the lead didn't stay for long. Just like the Norse god of war, UNCG used the Odins to their advantage on Ascent, bringing it to a second 13-2 scoreline and another win for the team, bringing their record to 6-0 on the season. Next up is Overwatch 2, University of North Carolina Greensboro versus University of Delaware. Going into this match, the scorelines made it seem like an even matchup, but University of Delaware was able to show exactly how dominant they are going into this map number 1. Map number 1 saw us go to Ilios, and UNCG was barely able to touch the point, only gaining 28% in round number 2. Paris and Route 66 saw similar dominance from UD, as Carter on Zarya was unkillable in the front line for his squad, letting TV D-Man and Moonlock secure the picks that their squad needed. That's not to say Zarya wasn't getting enough eliminations. Carter was consistently at 50 plus energy and getting multi-kills with the combinations of his particle cannon and gravity surge. Next up in Overwatch 2 is Bellarmine University versus Southern Arkansas University. Both squads entered the match at a 2-1 scoreline, but sadly only one squad could get the win today. Starting on Ilios, you could tell that Bellarmine was a very fast-paced, aggressive team, and SAU couldn't keep up with them. But on all three maps, we saw Stick, Neve pick up and pop off on Genji, getting consecutive team kills with his Dragon Blade ultimate and helping his team. When Stick Neve did fall, his fellow DPS Owl was there to pick up the pieces and secure teamfight wins. With 2 weeks left of regular season play, I can't wait to see where this team goes and how they evolve. Next up is Rocket League, Mount St. Mary's University versus Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. This was a match that Mount St. Mary's had to win with only 2 more weeks of regular season play, but unfortunately, they were matched against the undefeated RPI. The opening goal was made by MSMU's King Julian, and immediately it went to back and forth goals by both squads. But after a 5-minute overtime, RPI's Gio slammed the ball in for a Game 1 win. The action didn't stop though in Game 3 as RPI's Brother Nature scored a whopping 5 goals out of the 6 made for the team. The match was solidified in the 4th game as RPI took a dominant win, making it a 4-0 victory, and they stayed an undefeated team. Next up in Rocket League is SUNY Polytechnic Institute versus Wake Forest University. Sitting at 1-4, Wake Forest has had a very tough schedule, going against the likes of Ball State, Stevenson, and Fanshawe, and now they must face off against another tough opponent in SUNY Polytechnic. In the first game alone, we saw all members of SUNY Poly, Wesh, Ben P, and Toucan get hat tricks, with all members having an in-game score of over 500 plus. The following games definitely slowed down a little bit compared to the first one, but SUNY Poly was in the driver's seat and stayed dominant, closing out the series with a 5-1 record. A big test for SUNY Poly will be their final regular season game against Central Methodist University. It's time for the Mountain West Conference Rocket League, Fresno State University versus Colorado State University. It was rematch time, and the storyline couldn't be any better heading into it. The last 2 times that these teams faced off, Colorado took a dominant 2-0 lead, but Fresno rallied up and came back to reverse sweep. This time around though, that wasn't going to be the case, as we started off 1-1, but as we went on, it only continued to get closer and more competitive. From a best of 5 to a best of 3 to a best of 1, we went down to the wire with FSU and CSU, but this time Colorado came out on top of the matchup and took out the current number 2 team in the Mountain West Conference. Well done, Colorado. Next up for Rocket League is University of Wyoming versus San Jose State University. San Jose State University, riding the high that they had coming off of last week, took this match on with a purpose and a drive to come out of it with a win. With astounding play, SJSU took each game at their own pace, with Wyoming only able to keep it close but never able to take the lead in the series. Valtex continued to shine as he did last week with his mechanical skills, and the partnership between Toaster Doggo and It's Johnny to balance the team allowed for everyone to shine and take the match with ease once again. Now it's time for a little North American Collegiate League, Rocket League, week number 4. This 4th week at the Rocket League competition, we got Carolina University versus Northwood University for the first match. The first game was intense from the start, with good shots from both teams, but especially good saves. Carolina University takes the lead with a goal in the first minute. However, Northwood equalizes quickly after a series of rebounds that ends up in an own goal by a Carolina University player. This goal was a game-breaking point as Northwood totally dominated the match, scoring 5 goals for a final score of 5-1. The second game started very similar to the previous one, with a goal by Pancho from Carolina University, followed by a goal of Paco to make it a 2-0 in their favor. All was going well for Carolina. However, Northwood University's hockey makes two incredible plays to tie it up 2-2. They took advantage of the momentum, and in less than a minute, they managed to turn the score around with a goal from Buddy, and the rest is history, with Northwood winning once again 6-2, and the final result of the series, Northwood University 2, Carolina University 0. For the second match in the NACL, we saw West Virginia facing off against New Mexico State. This meeting brought a lot of emotion behind the results of the previous weeks. First game went back and forth with no scoring during the middle of the game, but New Mexico scored the opening goal, followed by a prompt response from West Virginia University to match the scoreline at 1-1. And just when we thought we were going to go into overtime, Ryan, a player from West Virginia, pulled off the score and the final goal 2-1. The second game got off to an incredible start as both teams scored in the first 15 seconds of the match. The game was very even as West Virginia scored the second goal, and it was quickly followed by a New Mexico State goal until West Virginia scored the third and final goal to tip the game in their favor, and despite all of New Mexico State's attempts to tie the game, resulting in a definitive 2-0 final score with West Virginia taking the set. In the third and last Rocket League match for NACL, we saw University of Colorado fighting against Culver Stockton College. The final game of the night began. University of Colorado took an advantage and a shot to place them 1-0 on the scoreboard, but it was quickly tied by Culver Stockton College, and both teams going non-stop until we quickly got to a 2-2 match. The final part of the match was dominated though by University of Colorado with a 4-2 result. The second game started with a quick goal from University of Colorado, followed by 3 more goals practically from the goal kick. The dominance seemed absolute. It seemed that Culver was not going to respond, but he scored a goal that seemed like the start of a comeback. However, University of Colorado managed to stop them in their tracks early and finished the match 4-1, with the final result, University of Colorado Boulder 2, Culver Stockton College, goose egg. Now let's take a look at the North American Collegiate League Halo event. Last week as well in the Halo tournament, we had New Mexico State versus Miami University in the map Live Fire with the oddball game mode. The first round of this map started with a very even game with little difference in points. In the end, New Mexico summed up a lot of advantage, but Miami came back and scored 100 points to 95, taking the game away from New Mexico. Second round began, and New Mexico managed to score twice as many points as Miami. Last 2 minutes, Miami comes back a little bit, but ends up not being enough because of the great advantage of New Mexico early, and they ended up taking the victory. New Mexico 100 points to Miami's 59. In the last round, Miami got its act together, and with only 1 minute into the game, they already had an advantage of more than 40 points against New Mexico. But New Mexico wasn't far behind. In the end, New Mexico ended up with a comeback and earned 100 total points compared to the 86 Miami ended up achieving. Now for match number 2 on the map Catalyst on the game mode Team Slayer. On their second map, they seemed very even all the time. Neither team got to have a significant advantage over the other, but with 2 minutes remaining, the score stayed 49-49. Miami finally managed to get that final kill and win 50-49 over New Mexico. Wow, the tragedy. Now with the score tied at 1-1, it's time for match number 3 on map Streets with the game mode Strongholds. In their third map here on Streets with the Strongholds game mode, the game began with Miami taking an advantage of 20 points, but it was not going to last. New Mexico takes the advantage back very suddenly, remaining with more than 80 points of difference. Miami tried its best in the last blow and almost succeeded, but it wasn't enough to win. The game would end in favor of New Mexico with 250 points and Miami with only 220, close but no cigar. Time for match number 4 on the map Live Fire game mode Team Slayer. With the most even game of the night, the fourth match always very even from the beginning all the way to the end of Slayer on Live Fire. Everything pointed to Miami taking an early advantage, but New Mexico came back in the last couple of points, and so they went even until the very end. But finally, Miami gave it to their all and ended up winning 50 points to 46 from New Mexico. Great job, Miami. Time for the 5th and final match here on Map Recharge Game Mode King of the Hill. Miami starts by winning the first 2 checkpoints, which seemed like it was going to end quickly since the one who reaches 3 first wins the set. But New Mexico gets their act together and takes the next 2 checkpoints straight, tying the score up at 2-2. Miami gives the last breath and takes their 3rd checkpoint and wins the game. Congratulations, as Miami sets a final score of 3-2.
Thank you, Polly, for the amazing highlights. I have the results for the North American Collegiate League's FIFA tournament. We interviewed Columbia University's star in FIFA, Killier, as well as Nazim from San Jose State to cover more ground in what was going on in their heads, while performing as well as they did.
What's up with my boy Nassim? So you got the big dub tonight. How you feeling?
I'm feeling great. I was a little bit nervous today, not gonna lie, but we managed to pull through.
What made you nervous, bro? I mean, you won the first game 2-0. Second game, like, what were you feeling there? Like, you pulled off the tie. Like, what happened?
Just a little nervous because of I knew I had to bounce back after not last week but the week before. I had back-to-back losses, so I knew today was a do-or-die game. After the first game, I was feeling kind of confident. Second game today, I got a red early on, so I was like, all right, I had to change up really quick. Still dominated the game. I felt like I should have had at least a goal or 2 and then managed to pull with the draw. Third game, no excuses. I had to put it away. And then we got it. We pulled through.
Yeah, definitely put him in the coffin in the 3rd game. And it was dope to see, you know, the comeback from being down 2-0 in the 2nd game to tie it up and wrap up that series, man. Yeah, you know, that's something we talked about in the broadcast too, was like, you know, you had those losses last week and also your opponent, like, who was going to bounce back? And obviously that was you, man. So, like, how are you feeling going into this last part of the season? You know, you were in 4th place with 6 points.
I hope that you guys enjoyed that interview and found it informative and entertaining. Now, let's get into this week's college esports news. We start off this week's news covering women in esports that are breaking perceptions. Jodie Farmer served in the Navy in 1999, facing gender-based harassment in the process. When she began attending OU in 2020, she brought her talents to OU Esports, creating and coaching a professional esports team in an all-women Call of Duty league. The team's first tournament in fall 2020 ended in a forfeit by one of their opponents because the team didn't arrive on time. The forfeiting team found Farmer and targeted her on social media and her Twitch stream after the tournament, insulting her gender, with Farmer not giving in to their need for reaction. She instead found courage to take it as means to move forward in the esports field. OU Esports Influencer Development Director Kate Fernie has a love for streaming that is sometimes met with personal concerns for her safety as a woman. Chris Bingham, an OU History of Gaming professor, said there are people attempting to keep women out of gaming, to maintain the notion that gaming is a masculine activity, which could explain online harassment. Certain people use online gaming to say things they typically face consequences for in real life. Going back to Farmer, she envisions a career involving veterans, gaming, or even both. For now, she looks forward to her professional esports team, Team Effect, to begin competing in 2023. She's also looking forward to moderating esports competitions in the Invictus Games in 2024, which is an Olympic-style competition for injured and sick servicemen and women. We're glad people wind up the courage to trust an environment that's as competitive as esports. Global esports platform Challenger Mode has announced it is working with influencer group Digital Superheroes and the Military and Veteran Gamers charity to support the amazing work they do for veterans and civilians. In honor of Veterans Day this Friday, November 11th, Digital Superheroes will be hosting MVG's 2v2 Call of Duty gunfight tournament on Challenger Mode and spotlighting the incredible work the charity does in establishing a safe environment for service members to connect and heal through gaming. 100% of all the donations given during the event to support its amazing work for veterans. All proceeds from the tournament will be used to gift copies of Modern Warfare 2 to veterans free of charge with the COD's For Vets campaign. The free-to-enter tournament will kick off on November the 13th, where players of any skill level will compete for a significant $2,500 total prize pool. There will also be an additional giveaways of 2 GeForce RTX 4090 graphic cards and multiple copies of the new Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. To take part and claim a spot as one of the 128 competing teams, visit the Digital Superheroes Discord and follow how to register instructions on the tournament info page. To enter the giveaway, follow Digital Superheroes on Twitch, join the Digital Superheroes Discord, and follow the Digital Superheroes on Twitter. While some esports programs have come a long way to be rewarded, others are strongly taking off. In East Lansing, Michigan State University is set to debut its official competitive esports team in the fall of 2023. It started in 2016 with a group of college students that united under one idea: build a larger community rooted in the enjoyment of video games. That community became MSU's Esports Club Association. 6 years later, the ECA has more than 1,500 students and major university support. Earlier this year, the College of Communication Arts and Sciences welcomed the university's inaugural Director of Esports, Christopher Bilski, with a goal of leveling up MSU's collegiate esports involvement. The MSU's first dedicated esports space, located in Hubbard Hall, is also on track to open in 2023. Esports, like other collegiate sports, garner comparable viewership to established professional sports leagues, a trend that has been especially significant with the start of the COVID-19 epidemic in 2020. In the middle of the global expansion and popularity, athletic directors around the country are considering esports for participation in NCAA divisions, as well as the International Olympic Committee for potential inclusion in the Olympics. Students at the 3 campuses of West Virginia's Northern Community College have an opportunity to sharpen their skills in competitive gaming, thanks to the launch of a series of esports labs. They were unveiled last Halloween morning for the use of WVNCC students, with 12 Alienware computers distributed across the 3 campuses. Students will either be able to log on to their own gaming accounts or use accounts provided to them. Matt Thorne, a recruiter for the college, said many prospective students have been curious if the college offered opportunities for coaching and development of competitive gaming skills, which led to the development of the labs. In the last few months, while the labs were being completed, students had been competing internally in several games, most prominently Rocket League and Fortnite. Director of Student Engagement Reagan Blath said students had been surveyed to find out what games they would find most interesting, also including NBA 2K and Minecraft. Blath said she hopes to further develop WVNCC's esports presence to a point where they can play against other schools at a competitive level. We take a lot of chances every day, some less impactful than others. Jay Cornegie, Executive Vice President of Sports Operations for the Superbook, and Brett Barnbannel, Director of Research at UNLV's International Gaming Institute, are in agreement that there won't be a big blast of esports betting when regulations take effect. Superbook takes bets in 6 states, including Nevada's Westgate. Nevada gaming regulators allowed some betting on esports during the COVID-19 shutdown, but when the nation's sports leagues went on hiatus as fans weren't allowed to arenas or stadiums. The Nevada Gaming Control Board established an expert committee of esports executives who began meeting quarterly in March to develop rules for taking bets. From the start, the committee opted to amend existing race and sportsbook regulations to include esports, rather than establish a whole new esports regulation. Cornegie doesn't expect the betting community to be breaking down the Superbook door to wager on esports after the Gaming Control Board and the Nevada Gaming Commission conduct hearings on the new regulations and the commission votes them into public policy. Barbanel said despite the fact that there could be growing pains in the expansion of esports wagering, there also are growing opportunities for those who choose to pursue it, whether they're betting or taking bets. While it may take some time, the fact that Nevada is on the verge of taking more esports bets may pay off with higher gaming revenue while giving gamblers something new to play. In just 3 days, Activision Modern Warfare 2 has surpassed $800 million in sales, a new record holder for the fastest-selling Call of Duty title ever. Admittedly, there are countless issues with Modern Warfare 2, from awkward unlock paths to unbalanced time to kill measures, and from missing game modes to relatively poor maps. There are plenty of ongoing concerns with the MW2 multiplayer platform. In December, one of the biggest Call of Duty esports events in the history of the business will take place, right in Raleigh, North Carolina, uniting the Call of Duty League, the COD Mobile World Championship, and Call of Duty Challengers. Before that, we've got the launch of Warzone 2.0, and at the start of 2023, the MW2 ranked mode offering will be reportedly surfacing. We may have some issues with the Modern Warfare 2 platform at present, but we're not getting a new Call of Duty title until 2024. For the first time in 16 years, an annual Call of Duty release will not take place in 2023. For now, one thing is for sure, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 is trying its damnedest to win over the community.
That concludes this week's episode of Collegiate Esports Now. From everyone here at the CEN team, we thank you for watching, and we'll see you right here next week for all the latest and greatest stories, news, and highlights in collegiate esports.